about to be spoken on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, brought to you by the ad-free shows, Podcast Heat, and Wrestling According to Alba Networks, and live on Wrestling According to Alba.com. I'm John Alba. That's the broken one, the woken one, the spoken one himself, coming to us via satellite this week. Yes. Mr. Matt Hardy, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Coming to you via satellite from Austin, Texas, here for South by Southwest, doing fourth rope today. There's going to be some wrestling. There's going to be some rapping. Shit, I might just do a little bit of both.
If it was an ideal world for Matt Hardy, he certainly would. I gotta say, man, those Hardy shirts you're wearing, those new NXT ones, those are sweet.
Yeah, they're cool. I love. They're just plain to the point, and yeah, they're sleek. They're nice. They're very simple and they're plain, but they look great. Yeah, it's crazy. They surprised us with them in Cincinnati. We had no idea. They had asked and they said, "Oh, we'd like to do a new Hardy shirt." And they said, "We're going to have a couple ideas." And they said they were going to sell it in New York, whenever we're doing the Cincinnati shot. But they ended up having it there, and they actually sold out in Cincinnati. And apparently, they did real well in New York as well.
We'll be talking all about that because this episode is going to be about the state of WWE NXT and you talking about your experience at Madison Square Garden this past week, which I got to be there for. Which was super, super awesome. Rajiv, watching via WrestlingCourtAlba.com, says, I hope I got a nice payday being on camera. See, I am Matt Hardy, the only person in television history to be on WWE NXT TV and SNY television, home of the New York Mets, in the same night. I'm Rick Rude, baby.
There you have it. Look at that. You've got something you can hold on to.
What he used to call the ladies, the sweaty, gross hogs or whatever, or something along those lines.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite pull that, but yeah, man, we broke the internet a little bit. We got the Extreme Life on NXT TV. That was cool, and it is so great seeing you in person. I can't wait to talk all about it. Coach Rosie's back with us. Says the busiest man in wrestling.
There it is. You are not wrong, Coach Rosie. Dude, my last 2 weeks have been insane. Like, I have made a point. They said, "Oh, well, if you have another booking here, do you just want to fly straight?" I said, "No, I can't. I have to go home for these 15 hours and be with my children. I mean, I'm going to sleep 6, and then the 9 is going to be with my children and my wife." So, because they got to make these people a priority. It's been crazy, but we're almost through. Like, once I get to this Sunday, it kind of gets back to normal. It's still going to be busy and hectic, but not every single day, like for 2 weeks straight.
Well, we had a 4-hour taping last week, so we had to make up for that in the eyes of House Hardy. So
yeah, I like how even your number, like you're like Rebby, is getting longer and longer.
For context,
I think for context, she said, "You're in there recording for over 2 hours," and then we had to stop her. It was like one.
It was like an hour and 5 minutes, maybe.
An hour 10 or something.
Yeah.
And then then you said, "Yeah, well." Of course, Rebby we did it for 2.5 hours. Rebby said we did it for 4 hours. I love that.
If she could give us shit, we could give it back. We just gotta play it right. So,
yeah.
You don't want to piss off Mama. I can promise you that, folks. If you haven't learned that way on social media, you're gonna learn it one day. So,
she'll start burning shit down.
That's true. That's true. Dave says can't hang out, but just want to compliment you, Matt, on just a tremendous match on Tuesday. The athleticism coupled with psychology made all 4 of you guys shine. Can't wait to see round 2. So.
Thank you, Dave. And Dave is your guy that also tracks tickets and stuff.
Yes,
right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
That was very cool. That factoid that John showed me a little bit of what you were talking about. That's cool that you tracked that. And they did say they got a pretty good bump whenever they announced this for the show. So that was nice. And it's real cool, man. Once again, I talk about this a lot, and I have been saying this. Like, TNA put us in a position to succeed, and it worked. And NXT put us in a position to succeed, and it was so great working with those guys. And we're hoping we get to do more with them too. I am speaking of Fraxiom. Both guys extremely, extremely talented, and it was cool because that was our first match, and you never know what your chemistry is going to be the first time you ever touch. And that was our first time touching, and everybody was really, really happy.
I'm excited to break the match down a little more in just a few minutes here as we talk about it. But yeah, man, I just thought that this was such a fantastic showing for you guys, and the love was really there. And again, we will dig much deeper into all of this, but there were a lot of other things that happened in wrestling this week. One thing I want to talk to you about, because we're definitely going to do an episode on him in the near future, maybe even WrestleMania weekend. But Lex Luger got his Hall of Fame announcement.
Yeah.
And I know you've had a chance to really get to know Lex quite a bit. I've met Lex a few times. I found him to be nothing but a great guy. And They shared this really emotional video of him working with DDP. He's trying to stand again, and Cody delivered the news. What do you think of Lex finally getting the nod here?
Man, just so happy for him. I mean, he's a guy who's lived, really just this tremendous life. I mean, where he's had these tremendous highs and he's also had these tremendous lows. But he is a guy who has persevered, and it's infectious being around him and his positivity. He's so positive. And he is one of the people that also kind of pushed me to think about just like live for this day, appreciate every single day you have, because he does appreciate every day he has. I know he posted a picture just on Twitter. He thank God for another day. Thank you, Lord, for another day, and like some real beautiful place on earth. And sometimes I think that gets lost on us because in our lives we live and it's so fast and it's so hectic and such a hustle and bustle, nonstop, go, 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 go. You got stuff to do, but like, man, every day we're here, we really are gifted to be able to interact with our family and our friends and our loved ones, and especially me with my children and me with my wife. And it's just, I still get to do this. I still get to fulfill my passion of pro wrestling. So it's just like such a blessed man. And, he's really made me think of that even deeper. And I think some people kind of lose track of that because of, the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
But from a wrestling perspective, he was a big star. He was a big time star. And
he was a huge star. And I do want to say this, because I told them too, I said, man, I'm going to be honest. I said, whenever I do promos, especially if it's something that I'm really locked in on, like if I'm just thinking about it, like for instance, the promo that they had us do, we walked back from Fraxiom and they're like, what are your immediate thoughts? Boom. And you just sit there and you say what comes off the top of your head. But if I'm thinking about something, I'll love to get locked in and I'll move my hands around. I'll do this and that. And that shit came from Lex Luger because I thought he was the coolest guy ever. He was a big hand user. And I told him, they said, oh, wow. I said, man, I loved some of your promos, especially because he would like insert big words. And, that's like right up my alley. I love doing that stuff. I would do, unique, rare stuff whenever I was, Matt Hardy. I try and use funny words in the Matt facts. Obviously, when I was Broken Matt, I would try and dig up archaic words to throw out there and pop people. So I love using very unique words. And I loved his promos. He had the look of a Greek god, obviously. Very, very special. He was buddies with Sting, even when he was with the Four Horsemen. I mean, I was a Lex Luger fan through and through, too.
Are you surprised he never reached the top of the mountain under Vince McMahon in WWE? He won the Rumble. He co-won the Rumble, and he had the co-main event of WrestleMania. He obviously had the whole Lex Express thing, but he never won the title in WWE. And knowing how he looked and how over he was, it's kind of surprising that he never got there.
It is surprising because, I mean, he's Vince McMahon's wet dream. You know what I mean? He's a big guy who looks like a Greek god who that was just Vince's MO. Everybody knows that, bodybuilder. It is a little surprising. I don't know. Maybe even it had to do with attitude. He even talks about that in depth often, about how much, he's like, oh, there were just times where I was a prick, or, I had just such a bad attitude or such a bad mentality. And like, it's just so nice to see how people legitimately change. And I love that. And I love the fact that he's being embraced for, all the legitimate changes he has done throughout his life and existence, especially through all the trauma he's been through, especially with his injury and him being paralyzed and him having issues walking and whatnot. And to see the stuff with DDP is such a saint, such a great guy wanting to help everyone he can put his hands on. It just really makes me look at Lex and be proud of him and his journey as a person, and also the way people have embraced him. It makes me hope that we do that more about other people in society, because like people change, people change, and we have to be willing to give people that chance and opportunity to change, especially if they're legitimately working hard to try and make themselves better.
Yeah, he was really just such a fantastic big guy. I don't say big man in the sense of like Vader, but like big guy who carried such a presence with him. And you go to when he beats Hogan for the title in WCW, right? And my goodness, they are going nuts when he puts the torture rack on him. And it's a big moment in WCW history. One of the more emotional title changes they had. Rosie asking, did you ever put Jeff in the human torture rack?
I did. That was a move I would use quite often in the TWF, the Trampoline Wrestling Federation, when we were kids, right before we started wrestling.
Coming around Mania season with the Hall of Fame, you should whip that out on someone in a tag match.
Maybe.
I think that'd be.
I might just whip it out to Pop Lex. He would like it.
fun little tribute spot to him. I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, everyone's stealing each other's moves these days. Ethan Page is stealing your shit. So
there's nothing sacred anymore.
Nothing is sacred.
Sacred at all.
We had AW Revolution this past weekend, and some headlines out of it. I know you haven't had a chance to see the whole show, but you've watched a few matches from it. I did my feature on Cope last week that dropped on SI that we mentioned briefly, that you can still go check out if you'd like to. I really enjoyed doing that piece. And he had his main event match with Jon Moxley, and there was discourse, Matt. There was discourse about this, Matt.
There is discourse, yes.
There's discourse. The pay-per-view was a pretty strong pay-per-view for 85 to 90% of it. I mean, there were some really fantastic matches on this show. The main event slowed things down a little bit, pacing-wise, and there was a lot of interference and gaga, as the great Pat Patterson would say. Christian Cage, your best frenemy, cashed in his not briefcase. And eventually Jon Moxley taps out Christian. They're going to run this match back. What'd you think of it?
I actually, so I started reading, I was speaking with you. I think you were watching it real time, what was going on.
Correct.
I was traveling back from Lexington at the Lexington Comic and Toy Con, which
Shout out Josh Fields, who was there, by the way. He gave the Extreme Life.
Josh Fields was there. He was at our Q&A panel. We had a great turnout. So many diehardies showed up. Great weekend for us. So thank you very much for coming and hanging out with us and meeting, greeting, and deleting with us. But I was flying home and I was kind of getting the rundown from you. And then I got in and I started reading some of the feedback to, the whole Cope versus Mox match. And it was pretty brutal. The sickos were not happy with that match being on last. And I became, at this point, obviously I know Adam super well. I know Mox a bit, but not close. I don't have that long enduring relationship of decades like I do with Adam. And I was really interested in watching this and seeing what it looked like. And I got to go back and watch the match. And I thought it was a good match. It was a solid match. It was two guys out there working. They were trying to throw stiff blows, especially for Adam, something he doesn't do necessarily as much. He was really fighting, and they were going blow for blow, lots of strikes, and they tried to make it like real personal, real physical. And I thought overall it was a good match. I think they were put in a very weird position because the stuff that came right before them, and I did watch the girls' match, the Hollywood ending, if that's what it's called. I did watch that, and it was really, really strong, really, really good. I thought it was an amazing blow off for the two of those ladies, and they both busted their ass. Really, really great piece of business. And also know Kenny Omega was in there with a match with Takeshita, and I know that was superb. And then Will Ospreay worked against Kyle Fletcher, and that was in a cage. And I saw the clip that was viral, obviously online, of the Spanish Fly off the cage. So I have no doubt those guys went nuts. And I haven't seen those things, but I was just going to say being placed after all those things and having more of a traditional style match with more of a fight feel and trying to get, false finishes. Is this guy going to win the title? Is he not going to win the title? Whatever else. And you have the Christian introduction. And there was also a run-in by some of his crew as well, by the Death Riders.
And Jay White.
And Jay White, yes, and Jay White, because there was some run-ins. So, like, that stuff didn't bother me too much, but the reaction to that match is probably what bothered me more than anything, especially online. And I know AEW, I feel like through Tony, they kind of put a lot of stock in that feedback, because I do think it was a good match. I thought they were put in a weird position, kind of a position to fail following all those, spectacular matches in some ways, because they weren't going to do that exact style. They weren't going to do that craziness, that insanity, that extremeness that sometimes those AEW matches have. So they probably should have been positioned differently on the card. That would be my thing. But I think it's one of the things that bothers me with the feedback to their match. I think sometimes Tony is fostering some of his fans, some of the AEW sickos, to almost have unrealistic expectations. And that might sound like a stiff shot or whatever, but I'm just saying they have these matches that are just so crazy and so intense and so good and so extreme, and there's nothing wrong with that. Once again, the girls, that was an amazing blow-off. It was bloody. I know that blood isn't for everyone, but I mean, if they were going to do that, that was the time to do it. So I thought there were these extreme matches. The Will Ospreay, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it was just batshit crazy. I feel like putting those guys behind that was a real tough spot for Adam and John. And when it's all said and done, it's just sad that they didn't look at this scenario of the match. Well, these are these guys. These are what they're doing. And they did. They busted their ass. They both worked really hard. I think there's just such a high level of expectation to the AEW sickos. And if it doesn't meet that, then they aren't happy with the match. With all that being said, the Christian run-in came into the end. Christian got a hell of a reaction, and I feel like if he would have pulled that thing out and he would have cashed the contract in, he would have won the title. I feel like they would have let the match pass. I think
because they got a moment out of it if that happened.
Because they got a moment, and then you remember it, and it's something that really stands out. And I think if they would have done that, it would have been okay when it was all said and done. But when Jay came in and just kind of threw that away, that's something we've been teasing for a while, and that happened. And I do not know where any of this story is going. This is just me as a spectator giving my opinion as a professional wrestler for 33 years. I wish they had done that match differently, or either at least at a minimum put it at a different spot on the card.
I will say the one thing I did enjoy about Christian cashing in when he's getting choked out by Mox and Cope's still selling. He just puts his finger on Cope. He puts his finger on him.
Yeah, that was fucking great. That was Jay through and through and through.
I was about to say that is Jay through and through, right? Like that is totally
him. The devil's in the details, and he's great with that stuff.
No, I popped huge for that. I think you're a little misguided on your thoughts on this, honestly. Because I don't. Listen. According to
please enlighten me.
According to Twitter, I'm the AEW mark, and they don't even know how you do a show with me. So that's because
I hate you, because our takes.
You hate me, right? Yeah. That's why you dab me up on WWE TV this week. But I don't think it has anything to do with they didn't do enough flippy shit, or it wasn't brutal enough, or it wasn't any of that. I just don't think they had a good match. And, I love Cope. I love Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley was the heart and soul of AEW during AEW's biggest boom period. I just don't. First off, I believe the Death Riders angle is ice cold. Cope, the story they tried to bring into that was an attempt to inject some life into it. I just don't think they had a good match. Like, people who are these great performers go out there and occasionally have matches that don't gel. What didn't I like about it? Well, number one, your whole argument has always been, well, you got to focus on the story. You got to tell a story. And they went out there to try to tell a story. But they didn't tell the story that they've been telling on TV. The story that they've been telling on TV, that Cope's been picking off each of these Death Riders one by one, and he's getting to the man in charge. They telegraphed the Yuta thing could not have been any more telegraphed. They were hitting you over the head with it that it was going to happen like that. No other members of the Death Riders got involved with this that paid off of everything that Cope did for 2.5, 3 months leading up to this. The match called for more brutality based on the feud. Keep in mind, their last match, Cope used a wrench to choke out Moxley. Like, it called for there to be more brutality, and having a street fight there in that spot probably would have produced a better match, because that's what the story that they've been setting up was calling for. But if they had done a street fight, then it would have been following up the Hollywood ending brutality. It would have been following up the cage match between Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. So that probably would have been a lot of overkill on the violence throughout the show. There's a reason they're running this back. My thought is, if this match had been in the middle of the show, it would have still had all that gaga and the interferences and the craziness. But I think it would have been more palatable in the middle of the show, because people would be expecting all those interferences. And they know that when Mox eventually just screws his way to a win, that's not the note that the show is going off the air on. And you can have a great wrestling show, but if your main event is a clunker in comparison to the rest of the show, or you don't give the fans that moment, well, then no one's going to talk about the show in a positive light. Think to Elimination Chamber. The Elimination Chamber pay-per-view a few weeks ago was, for all intents and purposes, a fine show, but the main event had a stellar angle and an extremely memorable moment, and now everyone's going to look back at that in such high regard as, oh my God, this was amazing. And I just don't think that they stuck the landing on this show with this match. The match did not match the story that they told, and that's why I didn't like it. I don't think it had anything to do with they didn't do enough crazy moves. They weren't like, I don't buy it. I think that's a generalization around the fan that watches AEW, because there have been so many matches in AEW over the years that haven't relied on violence and have just been great in-ring stories told. Hangman Page and MJF was not a super violent match. It was a match told on a great story before the show and in the ring. They could have done the same exact thing and had a good reception out of it. I just don't think they produced that. And that's nothing personal against them. Rant over.
Okay.
And as they say where it was, Wayne's World, and scene.
Yeah. Well, John, I think you've been infected.
Oh my God.
I think you've been infected by the sickos. I think there is a level of unrealistic expectations in AEW.
Well, what's unrealistic to ask about following the story that you've told on TV for weeks?
Not that. I'm just talking about the quality of match.
But that is the quality of match, isn't that?
But you were talking about not even enough flippy stuff and this, that, and the other thing. There are some times where
I'm saying that doesn't matter. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, I don't think fans.
Yeah, no. I know you said that it doesn't matter, but I think it does. I think the excitement does matter to all the AEW people to a degree. And I understand what you said about the violence in it, making it more brutal. I mean, they have some stuff where they attempted the concerto and he did stuff to Adam's neck. He was trying to break his neck. They were following the story in that capacity.
I thought that was going to be this big story beat in the match where he's like, I mean, it was so over the top cartoonish that he puts him down in the concerto. 1, 2, and you're thinking there's going to be like, wait, there's going to be a run in here. Maybe this is where Jay White comes in, and Edge, someone Cope, just stands up and just dick punches him or whatever he did. I was just like,
see, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. You're infected, though, John, because you watch with a trained eye too closely. You don't let yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I watch movies with a trained eye of having seen other movies before. Like, I don't know.
Because like even the match, you know, like I think you enjoyed our match against Fraxiom. It is what it is.
Loved it.
You know, we did some stuff. Those guys are amazing. They were flipping, flying around, doing all that. I mean, there's been some regular matches we've had with the system, which have been like low key wrestling, and they're not super exciting for like the sicko type of fans. But I think general regular fans, I think there's stuff that but they enjoy, and it's just like we get that reaction everywhere. It's great, and it's just because people understand our journey now. They understand what we're doing, and we're being put in a position to succeed. And I do think that Adam was put in a very weird position, even Jay as well, just with what they were doing. But, you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I just think the feedback to their match was a little harsh. And I think that's something that has come to light, and it has kind of been born of, you know, AEW, this is where the best wrestle, and we do this, and we give you the best wrestling, and we do this, and they do amazing stuff, no doubt. But that when that is your go-to line, as opposed to being like entertainment and storytelling, then you kind of have to keep that level up, that level of wrestling at the highest all the time. And that's going to be something that's going to be very challenging to do.
Okay, but like again, earlier in the night, MJF and Hangman Page, who you're a huge fan of both those guys.
I did, yeah.
And they go out there, they don't do any absurd, crazy, flippy shit. They go out there, they tell a great story in the ring. They had a good story coming into the match, and the fans ate it up. They loved it. So I think that's generalization, and it's not just you. I think there's a lot of people who generalize, oh, the AEW fan only cares about seeing the crazy. Sure, is that a staple of a lot of AEW matches? Of course it is. Speedball Mike Bailey, one of your friends, just showed up in AEW and had the ultimate of flippy matches with Beast Mordos. But I think that the bar for AEW fans is to have great wrestling, and great wrestling can be accomplished through a lot of different avenues. Great wrestling can be Ricochet and Swerve. Great wrestling can be Takeshita and Omega. Great wrestling can be Big Boom AJ versus QT Marshall. It just all has to make sense and create resonance. And I don't believe that the match that they had made sense given the story they told for months leading up to it. And I don't think it had anything in it that created resonance. Had Christian successfully cashed in, maybe you can argue that it created a little more resonance. Is anyone going to look back on this match with anything memorable and it was the main event of the pay-per-view? I don't particularly think so personally.
Yeah, I mean that's why I keep saying they were put in a very tough position.
They were. They were put in a tough position, and like I said, if it was in the middle of the show, I don't think anyone's nearly as hard on it.
And one thing I was going to say with the Yuta thing too, you said that they beat that over people's heads. I think that's a good thing. I think that is something they kind of need to do, because they did a deal obviously where Adam told him did he shake his hand, or he said this is what respect looks like?
Yeah,
something along those lines, right? I saw like the clip of it, and I mean there was like a teaser in that, and obviously they were playing on that, so that is something I did like. I thought that was a good story beat.
We got Rajiv saying they should have had a more hard-hitting match, even if it wasn't a street fight, more strong style kind of match, he thinks. Which that's Moxley's whole thing, right? Like Moxley's whole thing is I beat the shit out of my opponents.
Didn't those guys didn't they beat the shit out of each other right from the jump? They were like doing those hard strikes back and forth and then down and around. I feel like it was a pretty hard-hitting match.
Yeah.
I just feel like, considering what came before it.
And maybe they were confined, to play devil's advocate, maybe they were confined by knowing that there was all this brutal stuff before it, and they're just like, shit, we got to try to do something a little different here. And that's why they're having the street fight on TV. That's entirely possible. Who's to say? We don't have the privilege of knowing that information right now. So, and yeah, John Moxley's thing for so long was he bleeds and everything, and Rosey says there's no blood in it. Not that blood should have to be an expectation, but if that's John Moxley's thing and it never reaches that level, that's something too. But I'm glad you liked Tony Storm and Mariah May, because I just thought that was fantastic.
I did. I mean, I like both the matches in all honesty, except for the finish. I thought it should have been.
Did you like the cinema, the idea of Tony Storm winning with the shoe on top? Like that match was full of callbacks. There were callbacks all over it. And the end coming across the Tron, that was pretty unique, I thought.
It was done really well. Both women busted their ass, and they worked super extra hard. It was really good and a very fitting blow-off. So kudos to both of them.
But now, as always with AEW, it's about what's next for Mariah May. How do you keep her hot? How do you keep her strong? So we'll see where they go with that. And I recommend you check out Swerve and Ricochet. I think you're going to quite like that match. It was honestly maybe.
I would actually like to see that, and I do like MJF and Hangman.
Yeah,
I like both mentality.
They're so great. I mean, MJF and Hangman used the Angels wings for Christopher Daniels, which was cool. So they played everything very well. All right, that's a lot of time spent talking about this. I want to get into NXT. Anything else you want to add, Matt?
Good talk. No, that's it. A couple of things I watched, just, a couple of the points I wanted to make, especially with that, with the feedback. I just, I think you have to be careful about promoting. This is where you see the greatest wrestling you'll ever see. And we have the standard, and it's going to be like this every time. I think it's just, I think you set a bar that is very high, and sometimes that might work against you in some ways. I think it did a little on this show with that match being last for the title, and it was supposed to be a big deal. So that was just my point I wanted to make. That's
fair. Well, if that's your mission statement, then you have to find ways to meet that mission statement. So that's just how you got to go about that. But again, to me, good wrestling isn't just what kind of crazy moves do you do. There's so many ways to have a great match, and just because I didn't think they had a good match doesn't mean I think ill upon the performers that they're not capable, or this new internet report that Cope is the new Hogan who doesn't want to put anyone over, which my gut says isn't true. But
Cope-mania?
Yeah, doesn't work for me, brother.
Jeez, there you have it. Yeah, that's funny.
How tan is he? We'll see. But yeah, that's where things stand on that. So I want to talk about NXT and the stuff you got going on, my friend. But before we can, I got to ask, please hit us with that Matt fact.
Matt fact, Matt's guilty pleasure is eating in hotel beds.
Just something a little extra comfy about it.
Oh man, it's the only place I can get away with it. I couldn't do that at home. My wife is
heaven no.
You know what I mean? So it's just so enjoyable. I just happened to think of this. We were in Lexington, and I was able to Uber eat a little hibachi meal and some sushi. It was just so delicious. It was so good. And it was a long day, and we'd done the little Hardy party there that night, and I just sat back and I was like, oh man, I just want to eat. And I just like turn on the TV, and I was watching TV, and I'm eating in the bed, and it's like, and then I just like take the food, set it off in the trash can, and just like lay down and go to sleep. It was just pure ecstasy. You know what I mean? It was something enjoyable, but that's really the only time I can get away with that. I don't get to do it all the time, but when I do, I love it.
The luxuries of being on the road, man. You get to live comfortably. Is the weather nice down there? A little cooler?
It's nice.
Or a little warmer, rather.
Yeah, it's definitely warmer. I was hoping the outdoor pool would have been a little cooler, but it is what it is.
Well, the beauty of having the outdoor pool and the nice warm weather is that you can break out your chubbies whenever you got to, because baby spring is just about here. Things are warming up. In fact, Matt, I don't know if you've heard, but March means March Madness is here.
It does.
And you know what that means, right? Buzzer beaters, high stakes hoops, and watching everyone's bracket predictions completely implode. Well, it's a time of excitement, a time of unpredictability, and a time where legends are forged. In other words, it's time to wear your chubbies. It's a pretty good segue, right? Well, Chubbies has mastered the art of stylish casual wear that doesn't skimp out on performance or durability, whether it's their bright and stretchy polos, their iconic thigh-exposing shorts. It's thigh season, baby. Or their one-of-a-kind swim trunks, aka the perfect threads to wear as you helplessly watch your bracket predictions utterly fail. Watching games with your friends, perhaps? Well, Chubby's original shorts give you that classic feel with a modern look in the gym to make up for all that pizza and wings you ate. Well, Chubby's ultimate training shorts are built to sweat in with advanced fitness features. We could keep going, but we only got this ad slot for a couple more minutes or so. So all in all, you deserve a wardrobe upgrade for springtime and for beyond. So to sweeten the deal for a limited time, Chubbies is giving our listeners of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy 20% off your order with our exclusive code. All you got to do is use code Matt Hardy at chubbiesshorts.com. I know, dude, as the weather starts to turn, House Hardy loves to get out in the pool, and being able to sport Chubbies, whether it's those shorts or the nice polos, that's got to feel real good around the pool.
Oh, we do. I actually wore my Chubbies today when I went to the pool outside to attempt a cold plunge. It was a little warmer. Yeah, I attempted to cold plunge. It was a little lukewarm, so I did a lukewarm plunge today. But it was nice, just nice to get in the water, and it was very therapeutic. And there were people looking at me, and I'm pretty sure they were absolutely envious of my Chubbies.
Well, they're looking at the thighs. I mean, this wouldn't be a true ad read if we didn't mention the Chubbies Classic Line Swim Collection. Without hyperbole, it is the absolute top of the men's swimwear game, whether you're squeezing out as many beach days as possible or pool days before winter or swimming laps at the gym. Our ultra-vibrant trunks are built with a quick-drying four-way stretch fabric that are the best damn swim trunks humankind, or for all of mankind, has ever created. So whether you're getting dressed for your workday, a workout, or weekend getaway, there's a Chubbies for that. For a limited time, Chubbies giving our listeners 20% off your order with our code Matt Hardy at chubbiesshorts.com. That's code Matt Hardy at chubbiesshorts.com. Support our show. Tell them we sent you. Be your own Cinderella story with Chubbies. March Madness. Rosie said maybe you had a Chubby at the pool. That's why they were staring. Who's to say? Who's to say?
Not a chubby and a chubby.
Not a chubby and a chubbies. Well, man, there were like 5,000 fans who had Chubbies at the theater of Madison Square Garden this past week because they got to see the Hardys show up on NXT and wrestle Fraxiom in a killer match for the TNA Tag Team Championship. Let's go through the day, man. You get there to the venue. What were your first impressions of wrestling in the theater at Madison Square Garden?
I mean, first and foremost, it was really unique because we had never wrestled in the theater, underneath Madison Square Garden. Obviously, we've wrestled in Madison Square Garden countless amounts of time. You know, I couldn't even tell you how many. But it's so funny because we just said, all right, I'm not sure where we go in. I know we were going to the regular venue. I said, so let's just go up to the front. We had a guy that saw. I said, oh my God, the Hardys! I'm so happy you're here. Here, I'll lead you. And he like took us there and went through all the back doors and whatever. We got down, got to where we were. It was cool, man. It was a really cool, unique venue, and I think it's an excellent venue for NXT. You know, at this stage of the game, it's the perfect venue. You know, that 5,000 seat feel, and it's just intimate, and everybody feels like they're kind of on top of you. So it was a really wonderful venue to perform in front of.
How'd you balance playing to the crowd in that? Because for those not aware of the setup, basically the ring was set up where a stage would be.
Yes.
And the hard cam is where the back of the stage would be. So whereas normally if you were on a stage, you'd be playing to the audience, you're playing to the camera and very few people there and all these people behind you. How did you manage that as such an ingrained TV wrestler? Because that was probably something that a lot of the younger wrestlers had to wrap their heads around.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you've got to get used to, I guess, you know, doing it over time. But I also think too, NXT, they're really thoughtful about all that. I think they make sure to remind everyone of that. They're really particular about, you know, the way they want people to make their entrance and make sure they get their beauty shot. So I think they were really on top of making sure talent was aware of that. And I think the mentality of all the talent that were on that show had a pretty strong idea of how to perform and make things work. Because there's times where you can acknowledge the audience out there, but then there's also times you need to acknowledge the audience that is at home, which feels strange because you're not playing to this massive sea of people that are on the other side of you. So, you know, if you have experience and you know you're doing TV, it's not difficult at all. But I think all the guys that were there, especially the younger guys, they did real well. And I think everyone from, you know, Shawn Michaels to Matt Bloom, Steve Corino, all down, I think everybody was reinforcing that this is how we need to do this.
It was an awesome setup. I got there around 7. It was packed getting in there. The merch lines were nuts. And I would say probably 65% of the fans who I saw that were wearing wrestling t-shirts had some form of Hardy Boy shirt on.
Oh, cool.
And it was crazy. I mean, really, 2/3 of the people I saw, it was that many. These fans were so freaking pumped to see the Hardys wrestle at this venue on this show against Fraxiom. Did you guys feel the love when you made your entrance?
Yeah, man, it's great, man. It's such a good tone setter, the music, you know, because you hear those first couple notes and people get excited, and then it kind of jumps to another level of excitement when they actually see myself and Jeff out for the first time, and then we kind of get to the ring in front of everybody, and then there's like another level of excitement. So it's real cool how it's that building process. But you know, New York, man, I had a feeling they were going to be real good for us, and they were great for the whole show. They were great for Fraxiom, and huge kudos to those guys. They deserved all the love they got that night as well, and it was really fun to go out there and wrestle those guys in front of that just super enthusiastic, super passionate crowd.
Yeah, let's talk about Fraxiom a little bit. I said this to you after the show. I really felt like that was your best TV wrestling match, like just straight, not counting like Crazy Metal Mayhem, you know, like Full Metal Mayhem or any of the crazy ladder matches or anything like that. Like, I thought this is your best TV wrestling match since Double or Nothing against the Young Bucks in 2022. You guys just had instant chemistry with them. They really pushed you guys from a physical standpoint, and they gave a lot to you guys. You gave a lot to them. I always refer to it as the Young Bucks pin breakup, where someone gets bumped into the other to break up the pin. I had a feeling that was coming. I thought the match was really well put together. How'd the match come together? What did you think of their instincts for where they are in their career and just the chemistry you guys were able to build up?
I think they have really good instincts for being younger guys. They are both so fast. I mean, Jeff and I, we said that in our post-show promos because WWE interviewed us specifically for one. A WWE camera was there, and then there was a social media camera, and we did a couple promos there. I mean, that's one thing we both said over and over. Just like the speed when they ran out and did those dives was just jaw-dropping. It was explosive. So those guys move. They moved really, really fast. Every time they moved in the ring, they were fast. So those guys were flying, and I think that was part of the lure of the whole match as well, because there were times in there where they were faster than us. There were a couple times where we caught them or we tried to pick them off or do whatever else. But that was, I think, a big part of our story as well. Those guys were obviously faster. We were the young, fast guys back in the day, and the Acolytes had to catch us and shut us down, and now we had to catch them and try and shut them down from that perspective. I like Fraxiom. It was our first time touching, and considering that was our first time getting in the ring and wrestling a match, I was really, really happy with it. I thought it was solid all the way through, and I thought it was a hell of a first match to have.
What did they bring out of you guys?
I mean, I don't know if they
necessarily or how did they push you?
Yeah, I don't know if they necessarily brought something out of us that other people do in a match. I mean, we definitely have both of our moods and our auras and our stuff that we're going to do, and kind of the way we work. Mine's sometimes a little more aggressive. Jeff is just such a charismatic enigma in so many ways, an anomaly, and he does his thing, obviously, as Brother Nero. I don't know. As far as like pushing us, I don't know. I was just going to say they were really good at understanding. I love the fact that we worked holds in there and we gave the crowd a chance to breathe. And like, I would come up and those guys would understand how to get back down and get to it. There was like constant movement. We didn't do anything where we just sat there for a while. There was constant movement, even though it wasn't always like going crazy and doing high spots. So I thought it was strongly put together. And I love that, afterwards the vets, were super complimentary of the match and enjoyed it, which was so cool.
I was going to ask about the structure of the match, because they're not a team that's usually working in the heel role in the match. And even though they weren't necessarily heels, they were the aggressors in the match.
Mm-hmm.
So you and Jeff, a lot of times in your tag matches, change up who's going to be the one taking the hot tag. Yep. This time you guys went with Jeff. What was the idea behind that? And was there any rhyme or reason for that and working this crowd in particular or anything of that nature?
I just think the way it was ultimately going to end, when it was all said and done, it was better if we went that route. So that just, looking at the totality of the whole match, I think that is what ended up working out better, especially with a couple of cool moments we were trying to place in the match towards the end. I think these guys are going to be really special. Like, I don't know. I wish they would stay together as a tag team for quite a while, because they are so talented together. I like the way their characters interact, how they're very different. They kind of came along as like not to be tag team. You have Axiom, who does all these holds, and he really works hard on implementing these holds. He's trying to catch you in these holds as he's a wrestler. And then they're obviously both fast as shit. They even, put that over in their entrance with the way they do their specific entrance. Like, these guys are blurs. And then Nathan is the hothead of the group, right? So we like incorporated a little bit of all that. And I think even leading to the finish, how, there was a miscommunication on their end and Nathan got hit and down, and that ultimately.
Boy, howdy did he get hit. Holy moly.
Yeah. And they apparently they've had this issue in the past, but they've always been able to like manage to pull off a win from it. Yeah. So this was a little different. So there was a little storytelling going on in that as well.
Yeah, I love the counter he had on Jeff, where he got Jeff in the armbar. I thought that was pretty cool, and how Axiom was able to
when Jeff was dropping the elbow.
Yeah, when he dropped the elbow. Yep, I thought that was really cool.
I mean, that was great, because that was a deal where Jeff has like a regular spot that he does, in his comebacks. Because comebacks are what they. And I remember Steve Austin one time told me, he said, these comebacks. He said people like get upset. They say because wrestlers do the same thing over and over. I mean, but yeah, it's like your moves, and that's what you do during a comeback. So you do it, and then it's like, once you start doing things out of order and switching things up in the false finishes and whatnot, that's where, you're supposed to have people hooked by then. The comeback initially is just supposed to get the crowd, starting to raise their emotion. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you do all the things that are going to hook them, where hopefully they'll buy whatever you're giving them as a false finish. But for Jeff to go through that sequence that he's done and then go to drop that elbow in the cover as he's always done, that had never been broken up before. So we ended up doing that into the hold there with Axiom. So that was cool. I like that spot a lot.
Well, and it's smart because it shows Axiom, like in the context of the show, of the TV show, he's a smart wrestler who's done his studying and he knows what Jeff is about to do, and he's prepared for it, right? And that tells a good story, and I think that enhances who they are. I thought it was great, man. I thought it was just seamless and fun. That was the thing that stood out to me. It was just fun. It was just such a fun match to watch. And when
and it even was like the way we did that at the very end, where we took a picture and he just put that down, like they were all dejected and they were depressed, and then I was behind them and I was doing a thumbs up and Jeff was doing a thumbs up and I was doing V1 and gun, and and I just quote tweet, I put Fraxiom is fine. We could do that because in theory we're all baby faces, and I think even in terms of the universe that we exist in, we're all half-ass friendly. We just wanted to go out there, and it was kind of a battle between two tag team champions, and we wanted to see who is the current best tag team champion, who's the best tag team in the in the world right now.
You think you'd want to run it back?
Yes, I do think we would want to run it back. As of right now, our little run with NXT is wrapped. We do have some stuff on our schedule to do with WWE a little later on down the road. Nothing specifically with NXT yet, but
content stuff.
Just stuff. I'm going to leave it at that right now. We have stuff lined up with WWE. So
okay,
but I would love to run it back, especially when we gave our initial thoughts, following the match. The first thing I think post match is like, hey, these guys got a shot at the TNA tag team titles, and we were able to retain our tag team titles. We prevailed, but like, does this now earn us a shot at the NXT tag team championships? Because that is a tag team title that the Hardys do not have on their resume, and the Hardys would like to have that on their resume. So I think there's maybe a selling point there too.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the rest of the show.
Yeah,
Obafemi and Moose. I mean, I know you're very high on Moose. You've always been very high on Moose.
Yeah.
But you've had a chance to see Obafemi a little bit. You put him over a couple weeks ago on the podcast. I thought the two of them crushed it.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they had an awesome just hoss fight where they went out, beat the piss out of each other. And what I really liked is so much of Obafemi's run to date has been him dominating people. This is kind of the first time that someone matched him in terms of strength, in terms of speed, and really pushed him. And I thought Moose brought a lot out of Obafemi. From what you saw of their match and the reaction to it, what did you think?
I did. We were doing promos during that, so I did get to see bits and pieces of it. But I liked it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a good match for Moose as well. I love the fact, I know it said this in the past, that Moose is getting an opportunity to perform on WWE television. And I think just as a pro wrestling star, and as far as building your brand and people getting eyeballs on Moose, I think it was huge for Moose. And I think it did great things for him.
Yeah. And then transversely, it benefits Obafemi in a big way. He gets a big win over someone who has some equity in TNA and someone that a lot of wrestling fans know. Obafemi, man, I know, again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Sky's the limit for this guy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he has a ton of potential, man. He has such a great look. He's so athletic. He's young. He's cool. Got a great mentality. He has the opportunity to be a real big star, I think.
Presence off the charts with that guy. And that's, wrestling fans love using the term aura.
Oh yeah.
But he has aura and a half, if I've ever seen it. And then another match, again, that POS Ethan Page just stealing your crap. The street fight that he had with Javon Evans, OG Hardy guy himself from North Carolina. Man, they had such a fun street fight, man. What'd you think of that one?
I enjoyed that. I definitely got to see the end of that right after we finished up doing our post-match stuff. I dug it, and I dug the story they told into it as well. I love the deal where he jumped over the top rope, showing his, playing into his athleticism, and gave him the cutter through the table. And the fact that Ethan was trying to set him up for like a twist of fate. And I think he alluded to that, like, oh, I'll probably steal some more from your boys in that little shot that we did. Because with him, nothing's sacred anymore, right? I let him we like kind of bond a little bit, as I'm trying to get Private Party out of this deal. And I let him use the twist of fate a couple of times. And then lo and behold, he goes off to NXT. Then all of a sudden he thinks it's his, right? And the side effect, I'm sure he'll probably use that next as well, because I let him do that a couple times too. But he is one of those guys when it comes to being the dickhead in the scenario. Nobody is better than Ethan Page. And he did that deal where he was trying to take out Javon Evans with a twist of hate with the chair on his neck. And I think Javon shut it down, and he ended up hitting him with it almost. So I'm glad he did it as opposed to Ethan. I'm totally cool with a fellow North Carolinian. North Carolina, come on and raise up. I'm totally cool with Javon.
What does Jeff think of Javon Evans?
Oh, Jeff likes him. Jeff likes him.
Hard not to. I mean, he's a freak.
And he Javon Evans and Leon Slater, they almost, I feel like they're parallels in many ways. They remind us of each other so much, especially because there was a time where they were filming content and I wasn't even aware of it backstage. WWE does this a lot now, at NXT. And you see the clip where it says, showing some North Carolina love. And I'm back there, John. I said, Javon, what I liked about your match, because he'd ask if I would have watched it whenever we did the show in Orlando.
When you did the promo. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did the promo, and I did watch his match. And there was a point where he was in there and he did a couple cool athletic things, but then the guy came up and he started beating his ass, and he was throwing some hard blows, and he threw some good punches and a couple kicks. I said, man, the way you were incorporating strikes in there, which is so important. I said, because one of the first things Michael Hayes really pushed on us and stressed heavily was like, people have to believe you can really fight. They have to really believe that, if you got into a fight with a fan sitting in the front row, that you would whip their ass. If you can make them believe that, you're going to gain so much more credibility than any fucking move you do. And I said, man, the way that you were doing that, you had credibility in this. I said, then you do your stuff, which looks cool. I said, just even try, like maybe you do a flashy move, and like after it happens, follow it up with some violence, especially if they've got you in that scenario where you have to change gears or need to change gears. And I also see those exact same things happening to Leon Slater as well. He is doing that. And I think he's going to be hanging with us. And, it's our job to kind of give him a rub to a degree. And I hope so. He's a great dude also. But these guys are both awesome. And I'm excited for their futures. They're both young as shit too, both 20.
Both very talented. And if you're a fan of some of the high flying stuff in wrestling, like what the Hardys used to do, you're going to be popping a stiffy when you see what they're, the bouncy stuff that Javon Evans can do. But you also might be popping a stiffy because you took a BlueChew right before you turned on WWE NXT. And who could blame you, right? Because you can have better sex with BlueChew. BlueChew is the OG brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And starting now, BlueChew is offering a combo so strong, it's going to actually knock your socks off and your neighbor's socks off. You'll have to move different towns with the amount of noise you're going to be making. BlueChew Max has arrived, and it combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. The combo acts fast, and yes, it even lasts. Guys, be ready when they need to get it. You can get your first month of BlueChew absolutely free. Great sex is just a few clicks away. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you're going to receive your prescription within days. BlueChew tablets are made in the United States, prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Dude, earlier in the show, you said that you were home for like 15 hours. That's enough time to pop a BlueChew. Just saying.
Well, if I'm feeling broken, BlueChew will make you woken. It will awake things like you would never believe.
Even in short windows, when you're trying to make things happen, BlueChew will make sure that it does. So make your life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. We got a special deal for our listeners. This is very important because how you acquire BlueChew has changed. Try your first month of BlueChew free when you use promo code HARDY. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code HARDY. Promo code HARDY is going to get you hard with BlueChew. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. We thank BlueChew for sponsoring the extreme life of Matt Hardy. So on the macro level, you just said that you finished up your NXT run for now as things currently stand. What really stood out to you about this little month-long run that you had with the company?
I really feel like NXT has carved out its own identity. I feel like, for the longest time, people thought NXT was like an extension of the kind of the game show promotion it was when I did it right in the very beginning. And then it really focused on being a developmental territory, and it had new, younger guys. But now I just think there's such an interesting melting pot of established stars, and then you have main roster stars coming down and interacting, and you have new stars they're building. It has this really unique synergy and energy to it now. And I feel like it really has taken on its own identity. And I don't think of it as a developmental territory as much anymore. I mean, even though in theory, that's what it is and what it's supposed to be, I feel like it is like this interesting combination, this interesting melting pot of a different third varying brand of WWE, something that is a little below Raw and SmackDown, but it is its own brand with its own identity.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So I look at it where there was the game show format, which we've talked about. We did an episode on that with Justin Gabriel, who came on the podcast with us. You can go back and find that in the archives, extremehardy.com. But Black and Gold, to me, really was a lot less developmental. Even though it served as developmental, Black and Gold is the precursor to AEW for all intents and purposes. And it established the higher quality of wrestling that can exist in North America on television, whereas a lot of that was only happening on the indies prior to that, or very low-level broadcast. It nationalized that in a way that was very different. And I think it was a little less focused on developmental, because when you really think about it, Matt, Black and Gold itself, the success rate for developing future stars homegrown was not quite as successful as what they're trying to do right now, where there's a lot of indie talent that come through, but they really are putting a lot of presence and TV time into these NIL recruits, right? And these people from outside who maybe offer something different as former college athletes or Olympians. And I think that when Vince got his hands on NXT a few years ago and they made it 2.0, the show really took a big step back. It became very cartoonish, and it was all characters, and they put people who maybe weren't ready for TV on television. But I think it has really settled in nicely in the past year or so, where you get quality wrestling. I thought every match that we saw on this show was a good match, but there's also characters developing and performers developing over that time. Is that a fair assessment from your experiences seeing it firsthand?
Well, you said too, when you're talking about the Black and Gold, you were talking about there were some great wrestling on it, right? Like indie guys that would come and
fantastic wrestling. Fantastic wrestling.
See, I feel like personally, I feel like then it was more catered like towards the independent wrestling folks or the diehard wrestling fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I feel like it was, but still they were kind of in a developmental phase. And then Vince doesn't necessarily like that style, so he changed it. And now it's been tweaked again by Triple H in addition with Shawn Michaels. And I feel like now it's a brand where they're not really playing to to that same audience, like the independent diehard wrestling fans. I feel like they're trying to play a little more into the casual, broader audience. They're trying to build stars, and they're using guys from main roster to come down and interact. And it's still developing talent, obviously, but I feel like they have a better formula and format for it.
Well, there's more cohesion to it now between that and the main roster. Whereas Black and Gold, you'd have these amazing talents come in. Keith Lee, for example, who comes from the indies, has a great run in NXT, goes to the main roster, and Vince doesn't get it, right? He doesn't see it. And
what happened to Keith Lee on AEW, by the way, out of curiosity?
I think there's some health stuff that got in the way there. That's at least what my understanding is. But the stuff, I just used him as an example. But
that because I haven't heard about him.
But think about it. There's so many guys that you can name. There are very few that came from Black and Gold that were developed through WWE alone and didn't have outside indie experience prior, who made the main roster. Charlotte Flair's an exception, but look who her father is. Sure. Bray Wyatt is an exception, but he also grew up around the business. So there's a little bit of an inherent. Right, exactly. So a lot of the guys that did make it from Black and Gold, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, those guys had outside experience coming in. Now,
course.
it's not to say there aren't indie talents who come through. There certainly are, and they're very successful. But you have a platform with NXT where these talent are allowed to find themselves and develop, but they're not necessarily only over the top cartoon characters. Dave says, and he's a weekly watcher of NXT, says, I've always characterized this NXT as a melting pot where they simply try shit. Young performers have an opportunity to get better and also bounce around in character work to find their niche. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I just feel like they're locked in now more than they've ever been. You know what I mean? Here we go. What did he say here?
He says the audience is willing to go along for the ride because they genuinely are wanting to watch the kids improve and succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I think now they're a little more locked in. I think they have probably a bigger roster, and they don't put every performer on every show. I feel like, but every couple shows, I feel like you probably see all the guys, right? If it's guys that are NXT main roster, because I feel like they don't necessarily have enough time to put all the stories on all the shows. I just feel like what they're doing now is the closest it's felt to like branching out and having its own identity, where people don't necessarily think of it as like a developmental territory. They think of it as just like a brand.
Its own thing.
Yeah, it really feels like it's something, like it has its own identity.
Well, you know what I like now that they've done that NXT 2.0 was severely lacking is that they've brought in a lot of veterans who have permanent homes there. And those veterans could go up to the main roster if they need to. But if they don't, it's okay. Like Shawn Spears, for example.
Yeah.
A guy who has been wrestling forever, has his own training school. Why wouldn't you want someone like him working with all these talent that are trying to develop? Ethan Page, someone who's been doing this for a long time. Could Ethan Page go on the main roster? I think he can, and I think he probably will. But right now, who better to work with Javon Evans than a guy like Ethan Page, right?
Sure.
So, and then bringing you guys in, like that is a really unique space that doesn't really exist anywhere else in wrestling right now.
Right.
That benefits everyone. I truly do believe. Talk about the experience with Shawn Michaels, man. I know you had a chance to really reconnect with him here. How did that all feel? And not just Shawn, I guess, but a lot of these familiar faces in WWE that in a long time.
I mean, it was great. Shawn was great. One of the first day we were there, we sat down and we talked to him for probably 20, 25 minutes. And we were just talking about life and kids and how fast kids grow and how things change and just how you have to enjoy and be present. I mean, more or less like family stuff more than anything. And, he just he was very acknowledging of just like how successful we ended up being and how we were guys that were in the locker room. And like most of the people on the NXT that are the younger, the newer guys, they grew up watching us to some extent. We've been around, and how he'd been through that phase as well. I said, but I'm past that now. Now it is you guys. He said, it's you guys. They're all going to want to take pictures with, but they got to wait to the end. Which he was just real sweet, man. And Shawn, it was a great experience the whole while. And he was so cool, just so appreciative, so grateful for us even willing to be there and do it, which we loved it. It was something we wanted to do, and it was such a blast. We were grateful that they, asked us to come do it. And it's just great, man. It was fun watching him, and he's just such a great wrestling mind. He was one of the guys Jeff and I modeled ourselves after in some way. We think he's definitely one of the greatest to ever do it. So it's so cool to get to work so closely with him. And I think he does such a great job working with young talent and taking the time to speak to them and let the younger talent pick his brain, especially talking with Ethan some. I know Ethan has done that a lot, and he has learned so much there, and he's just enjoyed the experience, and it just is the most professional place he's ever been. And it really is. It's run like clockwork and so professional, and everything is timely, and everything is done before it is supposed to be done, which is cool.
Who's one person, like roster member, who maybe freaked out a little bit seeing the Hardys for the first time?
I don't know if there's anyone who freaked out.
Okay, I mean, so they all kept it together?
There were, what's that?
They all kept it together?
I mean, they all were excited. They all kind of waited to the end of the night if they wanted to take pics or whatever. I know the very first day we were there, and I don't even know if people knew how long we were going to be. There were people that just said, "Oh, can I take a picture with you guys?" And that happened with a lot of people, and it was cool. Somewhat surprising, even some of them, but like it was super enjoyable, man. Everyone was super
Yeah.
cool, super chill, and just man, if Jeff and I are anywhere, no matter who you are or where you've been or what you do, whatever your background is, no matter if you're Hispanic or white or black or Asian, whatever they know you're
Bigger
all.
than Obama.
Yeah, well, no, they all know, like, we're gonna act like we've known you forever, and we're gonna
Yeah.
sit there and shoot the shit and just chill, like there's no egos in either one of us, and it's just I think that's something that really resonates with our fans, and just over the years of just having really great, strong fan interactions, I think that's part of the equity that we have built, and I think that even passes down to just people who grew up watching us as fans. They're like, oh, cool. Like, we heard that so much. Like, they say, never meet your heroes, but we're so glad we did, because, they don't disappoint. They exceed, so it was a great experience, man. And we hopefully will be doing it again before too long.
Who was one talent who really caught your eye during this run?
Oh man. Both the girls were really impressive. Stephanie and
Julia.
Julia.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you get the pronunciation right. And it's funny, even they ask if they could take a picture with us, right from the jump, and Stephanie said I'd met her when I was doing something in Mexico, maybe when I was doing something through TNA, whatever, years ago. There were a lot of people that we just got to sit down and really watch them, for the first time ever. Even Javon, it was great watching him and just seeing how talented he was, because I'd heard about him and I'd heard how good he was. But one of those things when you're moving around like Jeff and I are moving currently and recently, and then on top of that, if you have kids at home and you have a wife at home and responsibilities and real life shit, it's like you don't get to watch all the wrestling you would like to. I would love to be able to consume as much as possible, but still there were a lot of people that really stood out. Oba is another person. I'd never seen a ton of his work, but I think he has such the potential to be a huge star, and he could go all the way in the business, right? I love Miles and Tavion too. They were both great. Obviously, I'm
Sinclair throwing the juke in her.
Yeah. Big, big fan of Fraxiom. Even working with them, those guys are really incredible, and it's so cool. Like, I think they are happy that they got that opportunity to do this weird, this weird move of like these two guys that really don't fit together, but we're going to team them, and then they really make it into something great. So I'm so happy for both those guys.
It's going to get both of them on the main roster, I'll tell you that. And where they go from there, who's to say? But it's going to get them to the show. And that's, I think, the end goal of all this, right? That's the purpose of NXT, is to develop these guys and gals into the stars of tomorrow. So that's cool. It's great to hear that you had such a great experience, man. And seeing Sean after all those years and what he used to be now in this corporate role where he's in charge of developmental, I'm sure that was probably even a eye-opener for you too.
It was great to have Steve Carino, who's a fellow Omega guy, a fellow brother of ours. We would work with him when he was in Philly, and then he actually moved to North Carolina. He lived in Rayford, which is about 45 minutes from where Jeff and I live in Cameron. And we did stuff together. He had NWA 2000. We had Omega. We did like an interpromotional feud. He was working with us on our match, so that was great. It was really great to see Steve and just catch up with him, and just felt like old times. You have these guys in the business that you work with for like long periods of time, and then you kind of go away for, can be years or a decade, but then you come back together and work, and it's just like, no time has happened between the last time you interacted with this guy. So that was neat. Matt Bloom, it was great talking to him, kind of catching up with him a little bit, seeing him, and just talking about some of the old days, funking dojos and whatnot. It was a great experience, man, through and through. Got to interact with Chaz when I was in Orlando. Mosh of the Headbangers. He's actually doing some coaching there. Saw Taker a couple of times. They were doing the LFG thing. Got to shoot the shit with Bubba Ray Dudley. We have our big personal rivalry about who's going to go down as the greatest of all time. He did a vignette with Fraxiom, trying to get in a good cheap shot at us. It's a rivalry we have.
You Had a chance to see your boy Booker too, of
Oh
course.
yeah, Booker. Interacted with Booker a lot. Booker was great with commentary too. I love Booker, but Booker's tremendous, man. I love the fact I love the fact that he does commentary the way he does, and I think he even leans into it a little harder because it does annoy some people.
I was sitting behind commentary, like right behind commentary, and I could hear Booker during your entrance. So the music is playing loud. That's how loud Booker was. He was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
the Hardys, and I was just like, oh man, he is having the time of his life doing this. Before we wrap,
Booker's the best, man. Booker's the best.
Before we wrap, Dave asking, how do you think Ricky Saints is going to fare now that you've seen it in close, in person?
Oh, I think he's going to do great. I mean, he's been super happy with it. Just there's such great structure at NXT, and that's one thing I feel like he was just like, oh my God, there was just so little structure where it was before. So it's just so nice to be in a system and there's a structure and you know what you're doing and like everything's timely and you know you have an idea of where you're going ahead of time and it's not being done day of. So I think he likes that a lot. They have everything clicking. Everything is clicking in NXT right now on all levels. You
got a fun weekend ahead here. You got the big TNA cage match. Going to be a fun show. That match should be really interesting. Anything you want to tease about it before we sign off here?
Yeah. I mean, right here as we tape, we'll be doing Fourth Row tonight. We are wrestling a tag team called the New Guys. And I had no idea who these people were when I first met them. I saw they did
the New Guys.
They're the New Guys, apparently. They did a little vignette and they posted it, which I liked, which I responded to and just said, okay, cool. You've got the Hardys' attention now. Thank you for doing that vignette. And my wife thought it was very cute. She said, how young are these kids? Are they in high school? Because they both seem very young. So we're doing that tonight. And then on Friday, probably if you're a die-hardy, you're here and you're watching this first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. We have that big cage match. I have the big cage match where I'm going to be teaming with Joe Hendry, the TNA World Champion. I'm going to be teaming with Nick Nemeth, Elijah, and also Leon Slater. We're going to be taking on the System and the Colognes in a cage match, which has a huge rivalry. We've been fighting like crazy, and we're going to put it into it here tonight. And then Jeff is actually in a ladder match, and I'm sure this is going to be insane. It's Jeff versus Moose. And this is like a Moose dream match. So I'm excited. I hope I get the opportunity to watch some of this.
It's about time. I think the System just have to leave you the hell alone. Like it's just they got to get out of your hair. Yeah, long. You guys have been feuding for like a year.
Yeah, I mean it's been. I started feuding with them at the end of April-ish.
Yeah,
last year. So we're getting close. We're closing in on it.
Gotta leave you alone, man. Gotta leave you alone. This is great stuff. Anything else you want to add here, man?
No, just been a fun chat, man. It's one of those things like TNA, man, it's clicking. You know, we did that thing, and I just on Twitter today and shoot him a real text too. Like Mike Bailey was very happy for him. Congratulations out to him. And you know, I know we lost Josh Alexander, but we've already got a couple people that we picked up a little bit. I think Elijah is going to be a great addition to TNA, and I'm so glad he ended up landing there. And there's a couple more people that I know that have been talked about, which is exciting. TNA is really making some headway right now, and I love the fact that it is doing as well as it is doing. And Jeff and I, we're still having a blast. TNA is being great to us, and once again, we are very appreciative. They have put us in a position to succeed, and I feel like we're making them proud with the way we're succeeding.
We have a great time here on The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. We want you to join our team, advertisewithhardy.com, where you can get your business out in front of thousands of listeners and viewers every single week here on The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Well, we are closing in on 4 hours and 43 minutes of taping, Matt, so I think it's about time for us to wrap things up.
Just got a text from Rebecca. She said, "Get the fuck off."
I think that's our cue. The words have been spoken. We'll see you next time right here on The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
Delete!
SaveWithConrad.com.
My name is Mike Garner. I am a top guy with ad-free shows. I am currently living in Charlotte, North Carolina. Moved here from Arizona. Like everybody else, we shopped around for mortgages, trying to get the best deal. One of the things I wanted to do was give my buddy Conrad a shot. So I reached out to him and told him I was interested in going through the process. The team at Save with Conrad was awesome. There was a lot of communication. They were very quick to respond. They were very quick to listen to, what we needed, the complexities of selling our home with buying a new home. So it was absolutely fantastic. We felt comfortable using the team. We closed on time. The paperwork was hard to get to us. So they made sure that they sent those overnight. So there was no delays. I've tried to recommend Conrad and his team, Save with Conrad, to other people that were either looking for new mortgages or looking for ways to refi or, just trying to get on a better financial footing, because he often says that he doesn't say no. He says, maybe not right now. My name is Mike Garner, top guy with ad-free shows. Save with Conrad. Help me and my family get into our dream home.
Available lesson number 212, non-equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.